Misconception: Alzheimer's does not start at 70. It actually starts 20 to 30 years earlier.
So compared to 5-10 years ago, where most of the people coming to see us, a big concern of theirs was obviously cancer, there's been a shift, hasn't there, in probably the last 5 years, I say, where there's an increasing awareness and concern about Alzheimer's and dementias. Why, or what do we see in terms of what the key drivers are, and why do we feel that Alzheimer's rates are continuing to increase in recent years?
It's exactly, I mean, when we ask what is your biggest concern, in the main now, it is Alzheimer's and cognitive decline. And it's understandable, okay, because it is what makes you, you. Okay? The Alzheimer's did not exist at all as an illness about 120 years ago, and yet now it's the biggest killer. So what are the drivers? Okay, as we're seeing, okay, toxicity is a big driver, neuroinflammation is a big driver, cardiovascular disease. I mean, our whole body really is there to support our brain to survive. And as our bodies are getting iller and the environment is having that impact on our whole system, whether it's our lymph drainage, whether it's our cardiovascular health, whether it's our liver and kidneys and the toxicity that we're having, whether it's our gut biome that is shot to pieces most of the times, that all as a totality is influencing our brain health.
We also get a lot of people asking us about the key genes that influence Alzheimer's risk, don't we? And we know there's certain genes like the APOE genes, the clotho genes, and it's interesting because of that interplay. We know there is a genetic risk, but often that genetic risk is potentially overplayed, and we know now that the lifestyle and the environmental
only.
factor
Yes.
is critical.
Exactly. I mean, 10% of the risk is genetic. So I think it's the fear of Alzheimer's that often people makes them very anxious to even talk about it. And fortunately now we have these investigations that can pick up changes of inflammation that lead to Alzheimer's about 15 to 20 years before you actually have your first symptoms. So you have your 10, 15 years that you can actually put a strategy in place before you have your first symptoms, so you can prevent that from happening. And it's by having that understanding that we have now that has influenced the attitude towards Alzheimer's. It's not something anymore that we say we rather don't talk about it.
Initially, also, when we introduced some of these blood biomarker tests, there was a bit of pushback to say, well, I don't necessarily want to know if I'm going to be at risk in 10, 15, 20 years' time. And I think when we explain to clients that actually what this is an early warning sign, now we've got the ability to almost predict the weather in the future to prevent the storm. And if we know that someone potentially was going to get Alzheimer's at 80 or 85, and you can either postpone that by 15 or 20 years, that's a game changer, or you could prevent it altogether, as long as you start to see those early changes years before symptoms occur, and you start to, as you say, put in place a personalised strategy, because we know there's 13, 14 key risk factors above and beyond just genetics, and we can start to focus, again, our time, our energy, our resource on what are the ones that could be driving the changes to some of these biomarkers, and can we then change that trajectory further down the line?
We've had a client just recently, isn't it, that over the last, 5 months, 6 months, their scoring, their cognitive scoring, we have doubled, okay, in capacity in their brain just purely over a 6-month period. I mean, that's a massive change. And that's no medication involved. That is purely by lifestyle changes, that it was addressing sleep apnea, was addressing, he's learned how to play the piano, okay, or juggling or whatever he's doing for the moment. It's making sure his nutrients are in the right levels to feed his brain. He's making sure that his lymphatic drainage, as in all the waste products, get away from his brain, is reducing his heavy metals. I mean, it is just an absolute program that you're saying, how do you support your brain? And once people start understanding and say, there's things I can do, the fear of an early diagnosis is going to reduce. And fortunately, we are on that path now.